Hello and welcome to the Sports Fix. I'm your host, Cameron Bunch, alongside Sean McFarland. We're going to try things out differently. Welcome to our first podcast. We thank you so much. We have a lot in store in the next 20 minutes. We hope you guys are out there, and if you are listening, we thank you so much for listening. Once again, I'm your host, Cameron Bunch, alongside Sean McFarland. Maddie Panazza will join us next week. But first off, Sean, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, Cam. Looking forward to this podcast.
Yeah, for sure. All our listeners out there, we thank you so much. We haven't been on the radio recently because of our mass population growth in Sam Houston State mass comm classes. So we're trying this pod thing out. So a rundown for the show, we're going to talk about some Sam Houston State sports, including soccer, volleyball, cross country, and of course, 90th Battle of the Piney Woods. We'll talk about some favorite memories and get you some information on tailgate, our predictions, and then we'll talk some college football this weekend. Leonard Fournette, NFL Week 3 and 4, the MLB race, and of course, Idiot of the Week. So we're going to jump right in. The Bearcats, we're going to start off with the Sam Houston State women's soccer team. The Bearcats were in action this past Friday and Sunday here in Huntsville at Pritchett Field. They lost to HBU on Friday night but bounced back and beat Texas A&M Corpus Christi 1-0 off a PK by Mariah Titus to knock off Texas A&M Corpus Christi. So I know you were there Sunday. Just give me something that you took away from the game.
You know, just being able to tell that the team was hungry for a win. They had lost on Friday. They're going out. They want to make sure they weren't going to go 0-4 for the weekend. They got lucky with the PK call, and Titus, she put it in the net, got the win for the Bearcats.
The Bearcats are in action this weekend, and Sean's going to give you a little bit more on the schedule.
Yeah, so on Friday, they're heading out to Louisiana and Lake Charles to face McNeese State in the Southland Conference opponent. Then on Sunday, they'll go on down to Beaumont and face Lamar.
So we'll have those weekly wrap-ups next week on our second podcast, so make sure you stay tuned for our podcast for next week. Next on the agenda, volleyball. The Sam Houston State volleyball team was in action this past Friday night, to take on Lamar in their opening conference game. Sean and I were there working the new video board, and the video board looks really clear. You can catch all the Bearcat volleyball games on GoBearcats.com. So the Bearcats came away with the first conference victory of the season on Friday. They came in and took a 3-1 win over Lamar Cardinals. They were led by Brooke White and Madison Wallace with both 14 kills apiece. And then last night, the Bearcats traveled to Natchitoches, Louisiana to take on Northwestern State. They actually came back and won 3-2. So before last night, they were 0-4 in 5-setters. So definitely a big win for them. That makes them a perfect 2-0 in conference play. And then before Sean gets to the schedule, they're led by the true freshman Taylor Cunningham out of Huntsville, Texas with 22 kills. So impressive showing for a young roster with no seniors on it.
Yeah, it's also great to have Huntsville people repping in Sam Houston sports. It's happened almost in all sports, and it's just great to see another one. So the Lady Bearcats will be hosting 2 games this weekend. First on Thursday against Nichols, October 1st at 6:30, and then Saturday, October 3rd, right before the Piney Woods game here in Huntsville against McNeese State.
Moving on to cross country, the men's and women's cross country teams were in Corpus Christi this past weekend. Both of them took home victories. Colton Stoker for the men's took home the individual champion, and Nicole Aponte took home the championship for the women. So congratulations to them. Their next tournament is this weekend in Austin, Texas. They're going to be at the Longhorn Classic. So wish them best of luck, and you can check GoBearcats.com for more information for cross country. Up next, the Sam Houston State football team this past weekend took on HBU in what was a blowout. After the second quarter, the Bearcats scored the final 49 points after HBU tied it up at 14 apiece. The Bearcats got their first win, and it was an important one.
Yeah, definitely. It's not been the start that all Bearcats or fans have been wanting, and it's really great to see them be able to be dominant in that second half against HBU after somewhat of a slow start.
So just to refresh you, the Bearcats lost a tight one in Lubbock, and then they ended up losing their home opener against Lamar. So that made them 0-2 to start the season. They had this second week was a bye week, so definitely a weirder schedule than last year, but this team was in the same kind of situation where they had a bye week and lost to an opponent kind of similar to Colorado State Pueblo. So the Bearcats fall off there, but now they're 1-1 in conference. So you could definitely take a little bit away from the Lamar game. I know the biggest thing was our rush defense. We'll talk about that a little more, but another big play taken away from HBU. But I think one thing that's definitely going to have to stop is the big runs.
Yeah, definitely. Multiple times in the Lamar game, I think they had scored 2 70-plus yard touchdowns against the Sam Houston defense, and then possibly even another one of 50 yards. And I know the big one was in the fourth quarter with just a couple minutes left. The defense had them pinned on their own side of the field, and it was 3rd down, and they gave up a 70-yard touchdown. That completely changed the game. There wasn't enough time for us to come back, but you just can't give up the big plays and definitely not give up that many in one game. So it was good to see them be able to not really give up as much against HBU.
The Bearcats shut HBU out in the second half completely, so good to see there at the game. So the Bearcats, we're going to turn our focus to the 90th Battle of the Piney Woods. The Bearcats and the SFA Lumberjacks will be in action at 3 o'clock at NRG Stadium down in Houston. Both Sean and myself will be at the game. If you don't have your tickets, you can get your tickets at GoBearcats.com. But let's talk some specifics here. The Bearcats the Bearcats have won the past 4 years, and it's definitely going to be a bigger game. Coach Keeler talked on Saturday in the press conference how big of a game it was. One of the top 2 rivalries in FCS football behind Montana/Montana State. Now, let's talk about SFA for a little bit. The Lumberjacks are 0-4. They lost this past week to Abilene Christian up in Abilene, so you can just kind of tell how strong the Southland Conference is. But don't be fooled by the 0-4 record. No matter records or rankings set aside, this is a bloodbath, and these two teams hate each other. It's one of the most favorite games of the year to watch and just be on the field to get a whole different aspect. And for me, I don't know what your expectations are, but I cannot wait for Saturday.
Oh yeah, it's definitely one of the biggest games of our season. Obviously the biggest rival that we have, and like you had said, possibly even one of the biggest ones in the FCS in general. So it's great to see these two teams, no matter what the record is. SFA, yeah, they don't have a win yet, but they're looking to get that first win against the biggest game of the season for them. Whereas us, we just want to get that win, keep that trophy, and keep this momentum going that we can build on for the rest of the season.
The Bearcats and the Lumberjacks both have been offensively shootout. A couple big defensive plays last year, but the Bearcats came away with the 42-28 victory in 2014 and then a 56-49 victory in 2013. It's been tight the past 4 years, but the Bearcats are 4-0 here at Sam Houston. So before we get to our predictions and what to expect and keys to the game, we're just going to talk about our favorite memories of just being down there and being in atmosphere. Me, myself, my favorite memory has to be going in the locker room in 2013, just shooting highlights and being on the field and having the whole atmosphere and tailgating and stuff like that. But being in the locker room, it's just a hard-fought battle, and the game was so tight. But just being in the atmosphere and just being around the players and the fans, and I just highly encourage anybody that is around the Houston area or in Huntsville to get down there, tailgate. The gates open at 11 a.m. Once again, kicks at 3 o'clock. You can catch the game on TV if you're not going to be able to go down there, and just check your local listings and GoBearcats.com. But just for sure, the atmosphere and tailgating, gates open up at 1:30. So what is your favorite kind of memory or something that kind of stands out to you about Battle of the Piney Woods?
I'd agree with the atmosphere and also just the recognition that both teams, but especially Sam Houston, gets with it being on ESPN, with it being advertised all over NRG. Maybe get some Texans fans or some away team fans to kind of look at that, look into it, maybe get some tickets or watch it, and just get them to go and maybe watch the game or just watch it online, TV, and get some new Bearcat fans. I haven't had the experiences that you had, even though I was in the press box last year. But it's just a great atmosphere being at NRG and just feeling the tension between the two teams for the entire 4 quarters of the game.
So now we're going to turn our attention now to predictions and what we really want to focus in on. Granted, SFA is 0-4, but their schedule has been tough. They've played TCU, and they lost 70-7, but don't count SFA out. No matter, once again, setting records and rankings aside, this is a bloodbath and a fight to the end. So my keys to the game are definitely going to have to be stop the run and don't give up any big plays. And then offensively side, we need to get Jared Johnson and Jeremiah Briscoe going. With the 2-quarterback system, we've seen both of them play. Jared with a little bit of heavy in the last couple games, just due to Jared getting in the rhythm. But at any point in time, I really want to see the running game get going and have a few breakaways for Overstreet, Donovan Williams, and Corey Avery.
Yeah, I agree with you about defensively not giving up the big plays. That's really been hurting us throughout the season. I don't want to get in a situation of where it's going to have to be a shootout. Our defense needs to go out there and make some key turnovers like we did against HBU in the second half, because it's a completely different team whenever you're able to go and get that momentum from the defense. You can just see it on the sidelines and on the field how our team was reacting to those key turnovers. Offensively, it's just being consistent, keeping the pass game strong, keeping the run game strong. And as soon as one of those starts to lack, we start suffering. That's when the 3-and-outs occur. You have to have a strong run game to also have a strong pass game to start confusing that defense.
I think one other thing that we really need to get going is our special teams. Lachlan Edwards, Luke Zumberga, and Gerald Thomas and Rudroy Frank, return team, and all the special teams really need to get going and bust a play and take it to the house, because that'll spark the offense and defense and just kind of get all 3 cylinders running.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, it would help if there were a kickoff return for a touchdown, but you don't always need that. You just need a good return, maybe more than the 20, 30 yards, just to get that feel of energy that, we just got a big return, we got good or better field position than normal, we can go out there and get this.
So the Bearcats are in action on Saturday at 3 o'clock. You can catch a game on ESPN3 and check your local listings for your cable television. Right now we're going to go ahead and go to our predictions. I've seen the offense really shoot out in the past 4 years or so, but I really expect this thing to be a hard-fought, good game, just a real physical game. I think Sam Houston matches up pretty well against SFA, so I'm going to go with my prediction. The Bearcats score 59, SFA 35. So I think that Bearcats will, they'll be neck and neck until halftime, but the Bearcats will make some adjustments and pull away in the second half.
Yeah, I think the Sam Houston offense will get going, put up a lot of big points. So I'm going to go with, like you, I think the Bearcats will get in the 50s. I'm going to go 52. And then SFA, I don't think I'm going to give them that many points, so maybe about just 27. So 52-27.
All right, with that, we're going to turn our attention to college football. But first, we're going to take a quick break. Now we're going to turn our attention to college football. Big week in college football, a lot of ranked games this weekend, a lot of good matchups. But first, Sean's going to get you our top 10, respectively, in the AP top 25 poll.
All right, so top 10 in the AP 25 poll, we got number 10, Utah, 9, LSU, 8, Georgia, 7, UCLA, 6, Notre Dame, 5, Baylor, 4, TCU, 3, Ole Miss, 2, Michigan State, and remaining number 1, Ohio State.
So we're going to talk about, first game we're going to talk about is TCU and Texas. TCU is ranked 4. They escape away a tough game against Texas Tech last weekend in Lubbock, but TCU still 4-0. Let's talk about the Texas Longhorns for a little bit. They're 1-3. This team record does not really show what it has. It has losses to Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, and California. So, last second things that, missed extra point and just simple errors, but the team really looks good, but it's really disappointing for Texas Longhorn fans with a 1-3 record.
Yeah, this 1-3 Longhorn record really could be flipped. They could be 3-1 right now. They've had 2 games that have just completely had major miscues with the missed extra point a couple weeks ago, and then last week with that botched punt that the punter just completely missed whenever they got the snap. They're a dangerous team. I don't think that they're going to be able to upset TCU this week, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a blowout because this Texas team is a lot different than what the record is showing.
Up next, Oklahoma versus West Virginia. This is a top 25 matchup. OU ranked 15th, West Virginia at 23. Both teams at 3-0. Both teams also looking for a Big 12 win coming off a bye week. So it's going to be interesting. You have the Oklahoma Sooners with Bob Stoops and Samaje Perine and Mayfield for the quarterback for OU. But I think offensively, OU matches up well against West Virginia. Defensively, OU hasn't been super impressive. They've given up a lot of points, but I take OU in this one just because of their running game. Their backs have really done a good job exploiting defenses in the front level, and giving the ball to Samaje Perine, and you have to like the quarterback for OU, Mayfield, that has he's a transfer from Texas Tech, but has really given the OU a second option with his feet.
Yeah, I think that this has the potential to go for a shootout depending on how Oklahoma's offense goes, just because West Virginia has a really good defense. They're actually first with points against, only 7.7 points that they're giving up a game. Now, I think that this has, like I said, the opportunity to go for a shootout, but it's just going to depend on that matchup and how Oklahoma does. I don't think that they're as hot as they could be, but I'm looking forward to that game.
Next game on the list, number 13, Alabama at 3-1 at University of Georgia in Sanford Stadium. The preview, the Alabama Crimson Tide have a 1 loss. This game's going to be televised on CBS at 2:30. So do you go with the underdog here for Alabama, or do you like Nick Chubb's and the Georgia Bulldogs?
It's just weird hearing Alabama as an underdog. I mean, I've maybe heard that 3 times in the past 5 years for Alabama. This is a team that's never really in that underdog feeling, and I really don't think that they're seeing themselves like that, but I'm sure that they like it just because they'll be called that upset when they do get the win. I think Alabama's got some things going good for them, although that quarterback play is still questionable. I think at the end, Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide get the win.
I think this is the most important game for the Alabama Crimson Tide. One, because if you have 2 losses, you're going to have another team with 2 losses if you're going to be the outside looking in the college playoff football. And secondly, if Georgia wins, that puts Alabama at a loss for 2 straight weeks, and that gives Alabama a 3-2 overall record. Even if they win out the rest of the season, that's still questionable, and that still puts a target on your back. So if you're Georgia, you got to make a statement here, and you got to beat Alabama. But if you're Alabama, you take the win on the road. That's a big win for this team.
Yeah, this will definitely be a huge win for Bama if they do come out with the win. But if they lose, they got to go back to the drawing board and figure stuff out. It won't be completely dead with the 2 losses, but it definitely does not help them when they're trying to go into the playoff.
Next game, let's take our pick here. Number 3, Ole Miss at the Swamp and University of Florida. So are you going to take the Ole Miss Rebels, or are you going to take the underdog Florida Gators?
I got to go Ole Miss. They got a great team going. They were able to pull off the miracle against Alabama. And, I think that quarterback play there in Ole Miss, great. They have a great group of receivers, a bunch of guys that will make their money on Sundays in the NFL within the coming up years. So I got to go Ole Miss.
Next game, Mississippi State at Texas A&M. Mississippi ranked 21st with a 3-1 record. Texas A&M at 14 with a 4-0 record. Texas A&M is their favorite with the home field advantage at Kyle Field. You know the atmosphere. You've been to the game. You've been there. But you think Mississippi State has what it takes to upset A&M at Kyle Field?
I think it'd be really tough, obviously, with the home field advantage at Kyle Field, that 12th man, and with the weapons that A&M's been able to find this year. Christian Kirk, who I believe is a Heisman candidate right now, one of the quickest guys out there on the field. He can do it in the punt game and return game, and he has crazy stats for a wide receiver so far. So I'm going to go with the Aggies here, and hopefully that they can just keep on with the momentum and avoid the upset.
I'm going to also go with the Aggies. I think it's a close one, but Kyle Allen has done a tremendous job of keeping his poise late in the second half. So I'm going to go with the Aggies to move to 5-0 and move up in the top 10. Hopefully someone goes down in the top 10. All right, next game and the last final game set for Saturday. Notre Dame, number 6 Notre Dame at Clemson. Both are undefeated. This is an important game for both teams. Notre Dame looking to move 5-0 and get up in the top. They're officially in the top 10, but looking to fight and start the season. They've started 4-0 for 3 out of the last 4 years. So who are you going to go with this week?
It's a big game for both teams playoff-wise. One, Notre Dame's going to have to go undefeated or get lucky if they happen to lose 1 or 2 games in order to get into that playoff while they're being an independent school. Clemson, on the other hand, I think that they're one of the strongest teams right now in the ACC, now that Florida State's maybe a little bit weaker than they have been in the past. I like the quarterback play from Deshaun Watson. He's done a great job this season. But I want to say I think I got Clemson in this game. I want to say that they might have the opportunity to hurt Notre Dame and their chance of getting in the playoff.
I'm going to go with the Fighting Irish. I think this is a game that they're a much needed win. I think Malik Zaire and running back Terran Folston will do what it takes. I think it's a close one, but Notre Dame pulls off a tight one in Clemson. All right, we're going to turn our attention here in the last bit of our podcast to our NFL Week 4 games. We're going to give you our game to watch of the weekend and why. Sean's going to go first. So, Sean, give me your NFL game of the week and why.
My game of the week is the Monday Night Football game between the Detroit Lions and the Seattle Seahawks at CenturyLink Field. So, of course, the Seahawks got their own version of the 12th man and being one of the loudest stadiums in the NFL. I think this game is going to be interesting. We still haven't seen the full Seahawks team that we've maybe seen the past couple seasons. I want to see how Marshawn Lynch is going to do. As last we heard, he's 50-50 for the game, which could be pretty big not having beast mode out there in the backfield. But just if they don't have beast mode, I like to see if they can get the passing game up. Jimmy Graham, this big all-world tight end that the Seahawks have, they really haven't gotten the full potential from him. I want to see Russell Wilson give him the ball and let the man do his job because he's just a beast at the tight end position that could really get that offense going when they don't have Marshawn.
My game is the Sunday Night Football game, the Dallas Cowboys in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome against New Orleans Saints. The Saints at 0-3. This is probably the most important game for the New Orleans Saints because if they lose to Brandon Weeden and the Cowboys, that takes the Saints to 0-4. We saw it last year. There's still lots of football to play, but they're digging themselves in a hole bigger than they already are, especially with Dallas, with Dez Bryant and Tony Romo out. I think it's one of the biggest games for Drew Brees, not only because if you want to make a contention for the NFC South, but just the way the NFC South is playing. You have the Panthers at 3-0, and you're looking at yourself at the bottom of the totem pole right now. So that is our game for the week. All right, our last segment here, we're going to give you our fantasy football player of the week. Mine is running back Devontae Freeman. He scored 38.3 points last week. That's according to ESPN Standard Score. He had 30 attempts for 141 yards and 3 touchdowns. Week 1, he scored 5 points. Week 2, he scored 12 points. But progressively, fantasy shows that this is one free agent that you must pick up. Sean, who's your free agent of the week for NFL fantasy football?
Go out and get Tyrod Taylor, the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills. Some of y'all might be saying, who? He is the 5th ranked quarterback in fantasy. He's a dual threat quarterback that the Bills have picked over that quarterback controversy that they're having at the beginning of the year. And you know what? He's put 15 points up the first week, 25 points in the second week against the Patriots, and 24 points in week 3. You're seeing big things to come as he goes up against the Giants defense this weekend.
Well, that's going to do it for us here on the Sports Fix. On behalf of Sean McFarland and myself, we thank you so much for tuning in to our podcast, The Sports Fix. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Fix_sports. That's FIX_SPRTS. We thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week. Make sure, don't forget, Battle of the Piney Woods this weekend at 3 o'clock in Houston. Best of luck to all the Bearcats and fans. Thanks for so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week here on The Sports Fix.